Hi everyone, welcome back to Job One for All. In this video, we are going to start talking about the utility classes inside of the package java.time. As you know, the date and calendar, they are basically deprecated, and if you have to start working with anything these days related to dates, you should use one of the classes inside of the java.time. So basically, in the version 8, they introduced this package. It was based on a famous date package called Joda time, and most of the methods that you have there, you will see that we also have inside of the Joda time package. So basically, the guys from the JVM, they were inspired by how good this library was working and decided to get most of its functionalities inside of the Java itself. So let's start with the most one of the most simple ones that you probably will use several times. That is the local date. Just create a package, a class inside of the package rdate, local date test01. We have several classes. We have local date, we have local time, and we have local date time. The difference between them is that, as the name implies, local date will only be for dates, local time only for hours, and local date time it will be for both when we are working with dates and hours at the same time. So just a quick recap, we have the date inside of the package java.util, and you have the date inside the package, you have the calendar as well inside of the package util, that you can get both of them like this, new date and calendar.get instance. And pay attention to the way the toString works for both of them. Now, let's start with local date and let's say the not so simple way. How do we create a date, for example, for a specific time in 2022, for example, let's say January 27th of 2022. Using local date is pretty straightforward. You just create a reference variable, local date, and you can name it date. And local date is not abstract, but the constructor is private. So you will not be able to create a new instance from local date using the keyword new. So to get a specific date, you can use the off method. And then you can pass here 2022, the month, something that they finally fixed. Now January starts with 1. You can check that, for example, by getting the month instance. You can use south and then month from java.time.january. This is going to return January. If I try to print now, what you want is the value. So just add get value. And finally, for God's sake, we have the month starting with 1. So you can either use the integer value here. No, actually, you cannot use the integer. No, you can use it. It's overloaded. But I would recommend you to use the month like we have here. So I would like to get this January and add it here. And 27th. So basically, this is how you create a date for 2022, January 27th. Now, the same way we did for the calendar, there are several methods, utility methods that will return what we want. So for example, imagine that we would like to get the year. We have date and we have a useful method called getYear. Control Shift F10. Or let's say that you would like to get the month. So you get the month. Or you would like to get, because the month is going to return January, but sometimes you want the value that represents January. You have get month value that will return 1. Another useful ones are, for example, day of the week, day of the week, day of the month, Control Shift F10. So day of the week, Thursday, day of the month, 27th. Control D. One very useful is the length of the month, especially if you're working with reports. Sometimes you need to know how many days you have in one month. Sometimes 30, 29, 28, and 30. one. And talking about 29, 28, that is one method that will tell you if it is leap year or not. Basically, is leap year. If returns true, 2022 would be a leap year, but it returned false, so it's not a leap year. And if this is not enough, you can always use the get sending a temporal field. So the temporal field, it's a interface. So if you open here, that has a couple classes implementing it, and we can use, for example, the chrono field to get what we want from this local date. So I can use it here, chrono field, and let's say that I would like to get the year. So chrono field dot year or chrono field dot day of month, and we have exactly the same results as we have here. Now, one of the best things, in my opinion, is how they handle printing the dates. Now, if you get to the toString, for example, this date, you will notice something very interesting if you have a little bit of experience developing software. The date now, the toString, this is what we had before for date and for the calendar, but now it looks like this. And if you ever worked with databases before, you will notice that this is exactly like the database usually stores in their columns. So basically, you can just get directly the value that you have in the database and parse into the local date, or from local date directly to your database without having to do the conversion like from date and then to string and then SQL string and so on. Basically, this is like a huge improvement in my opinion. So we have been working with that specific date, but how do we get the date that we have now? Very intuitive. It's just local date dot now. And if I print here, Control D, now, Control Shift F10, we have the current date. And another change that we have is they don't have that limitation anymore. The date in the calendar, they could go only up to January 1st of January 1970. Now, if you use localdate.min from minimum and maximum, you will realize that the range is way bigger than what we had before. So I'm pretty sure that this will cover you for a while. So basically, this is it about the local date. What do you have to remember about local date? First, you have to use local date from now on. Don't use date, don't use calendar. It's like 2021. It was introduced on Java 8. We are on Java 15. So make sure that you are always using local date to represent your date. Unless, of course, you are blocked by some requirement, just go with local date. Most of the time when I have to do conversions from like a specific date because of a legacy system, and if I have option to use Java 8 or higher, I will always work with local date, and at the end I will do a conversion to a regular date or calendar, because it's way easier to work with this local date, especially because of all these methods that they provide you. So introduced on Java 8, and one very important thing is that this class now is immutable. What does mean immutable? It means that all the changes that you are doing in this object will always create a new object. It's basically a copy of the object that you were changing plus the change that you made. So let's say, for example, for the date now, if I execute, you see that we have 16th of February. If I try to add 2 days, so now dot plus, and we have this very useful method, plus days, plus months, plus years, or using the temporal amount basically from temporal unit. So plus days, I would say 2. If I execute again, you will notice that that's still 16th of February. And the reason is, since there is a new object being generated from this, you have to reassign the reference like this. And now we have 18th of February. So basically that's it for the local date. In the next video we are going to talk about the local time. So local date for dates, local time for time, local date time for both of them. Let's go one by one, and see you in the next video. Bye.